Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Leanne, and today's What's for Dinner video has got some really yummy, delicious dinner ideas and recipes, so let's get started. So for this first recipe, we are going to be having a spaghetti squash and meatballs. So I am making up our meatballs. I've got 2 eggs that are beaten with a half a cup of milk. I am adding in almond milk just because that's what we use. And now I'm adding in a half a cup of freshly grated Parmesan cheese, and then 1 cup of pancos or breadcrumbs, your choice. The recipe also calls for 1 small onion, minced or grated. I did not feel like doing that, so I'm just adding in kind of a palmful of the dried minced onion, and I'm going to use some Italian seasoning and some salt instead of using oregano, and then later ask for some fresh basil, which I did not have. So I am switching up the recipe a little bit, and then we're going to add in some minced garlic. I will have the original recipe listed below if you want to take a look, if you prefer to use recipes a little bit more specifically. But I'm going to mix it all together, and then we're going to add in our pound of ground beef. You don't have to mix this all together first, but I think it's a good way to get all of these seasonings and stuff more evenly dispersed. And then we're going to mix in that 1 pound of ground beef and form up some golf size meatballs. Now this dinner was perfect. We had just gotten back in town the day before, and we had kind of had a last minute trip, last minute traveling, and I hadn't been to the store yet, but I had everything on hand. I had a spaghetti squash because spaghetti squash tends to last for quite a while, and so it was really helpful to just know that we had that. And I just pulled out some meat from the freezer. I had some milk that hadn't been opened. We tried to just use up what was already open before we left for our little trip, and so this was great that I had a really good meal that I could make without even going to the store when we first came back. I put my meatballs on some parchment paper on top of a baking sheet, and I baked these in the oven at 350, and I'm using my microwave timer because I already had the bottom one going, and I wasn't totally sure how to use it because I don't usually use the timer up here. Anyways, we're going to bake those for 30 minutes, and then I already had my spaghetti squash baking in the oven. I've showed you that a bunch of times. You slice it in half, scoop up the seeds, put it upside down, and throw it in the oven until it's cooked, which is going to depend based on how big your spaghetti squash is. But mine's out already. You can see it there on the stove, and I'm just going to heat up some marinara sauce. Okay, so I'm showing you this twice because first of all, I'm using just plain marinara sauce from Aldi, and I'm just adding in some Italian seasoning. But when I did my first jar, when I closed the lid back on it, I was like, something sounds weird. And I looked, and there was a big chunk of glass out of the rim, and I was like, I'm not risking that being in there. So I dumped the whole thing, cleaned the pot, and started over. So I was glad that I had multiple things of sauce in my pantry. Otherwise, dinner would have been ruined. And meatballs are done. Serve them on top of our spaghetti squash with some sauce and some more Parmesan cheese. And this dinner was absolutely delicious. It was perfect for just another home-cooked meal when we came back from being out of town. And always love this. Recipe will be linked below. This next dinner, we are making some orange chicken, and I've been wanting to try a recipe for a long time. I actually saw Jess on Jess and the Boys make orange chicken. I think I've probably seen her do it a couple times. I'm not using the same recipe she did, but I was like, I really want to try to make that. So this is the recipe I'm using. First of all, this is supposed to be boneless, skinless chicken breast. I took it out of the freezer and didn't realize until I went to make it that they were actually chicken thighs, not chicken breast. So it's dark meat. So that's definitely one thing I would change. I would do the chicken breast. That was definitely my intention. But anyways, we got them cut up into 1-inch cubes. We're going to fry them up in a pan with some sesame oil. We're making our sauce now, and I've got 2 cups of orange juice, a 1/4 cup of chicken broth, and then we're going to add in a 1/4 cup of coconut aminos, 3 tablespoons of honey, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. The recipe calls for some fresh ginger. I did not have that, so I just used some dried. And then the recipe also calls for some orange zest, which I did not have. I realized I don't have a zester. So I used some orange essential oil, which is safe to be, the one I have is safe to be consumed, but I definitely put too many drops here. I don't know why I did that. I should have only put 1 drop. So that's the other thing I would change in this, is do that properly. and maybe add in some more honey, but I think if I had done the proper amount with the oil, then it would have been fine. And I used the oil because, just a little FYI, the orange essential oil is cold pressed from the rind of the orange, so I figure that's getting the same juice or like flavoring from orange zest. Anyways, I will have the recipe linked below. Feel free to follow that. So once the chicken was cooked, you take that out of the pan, set it aside, and then use that same pan to heat up our sauce mixture. And then I'm making some rice here. I'm using some homemade chicken broth that I had from the freezer, so that's why I'm pouring it from a bag. And we're just going to make up some good old brown rice, and you're going to let that sauce simmer for bring it to a boil for 15 to 20 minutes, making sure you stir it about every minute so that it doesn't stick or burn. You want it to keep it bubbling. Once that is done, you're going to add your chicken in and coat that really good. And I steamed up some broccoli on the side. This was so good. I definitely recommend this. Like I said, I would have preferred it with the white meat, which is what I intended to do, and I went too happy on the oil. I don't know why I did that. I know how strong I put when it is, but I will be making this again. I loved this, and I really actually do like Chinese food, but I don't often like the texture of the meat when we're out, so I was like, the idea of making this at home is perfect, and it was delicious, so I definitely recommend this recipe. Alright, so this next recipe, I got this idea from Jessica O'Donoghue. Love her channel, love her and her husband, just absolutely adore them, enjoy watching them. I will link this video for you to check out. Apparently I was getting my inspirations from a bunch of Jessicas this time around, but I pretty closely followed the recipe, but we were making cheeseburger tacos. One difference is they cooked fresh bacon, and I end up using bacon pieces. But if you're going to do the fresh bacon, cook it first and then cook your meat in the grease from that. But I put a little grease in my pan, cooked up 1 pound of beef. I did that because the beef I have is extremely lean. And then once that is cooked, we're going to add in 2 to 3 tablespoons of mustard, and then we're going to add in some garlic powder and onion powder. Although actually I think she may have only used garlic powder, I'm not positive. And then salt and pepper to taste. I only use salt as usual. Some Worcestershire sauce. She said about 5 to 6 shakes was what she said, and then some cheese. So this is not a super specific recipe. You can definitely eyeball this and do it your own way. Definitely check out her video and see how she did it. You won't be disappointed in her channel. She is just a joy to watch. One thing I would do, we ended up adding ketchup later, but I think I would add ketchup in this mixture. So that's just a thought if you want to do that. But we're going to melt in some shredded cheese. I probably had about a cup of shredded cheese. And then we're going to stir in our bacon. I'm just using bacon pieces from Aldi, but freshly cooked and chopped up bacon would of course be delicious in this. And I'm just making up these on a flour tortilla with some of that ground beef mixture. My husband put some lettuce and tomatoes right on his, and there's already cheese in the meat mixture. There's all the other goodness in there. And then we were like, oh, we want to add on pickles. So that's what he's doing right now, is tearing up some pickles. And that was definitely a really good addition. And this was super delicious. I highly recommend it. I would definitely make this again, and I would definitely check out Jessica's channel below. I will have this video linked for you. I'm making mine up. I just put pickles, rolled mine up, and put some lettuce and tomato on the side. But yes, this was absolutely delicious. Highly recommend giving this one a try. It was a nice switch up for sure. Okay, well that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed these really delicious recipes. There's just 3 meals in today's video, but they were all a hit, and I highly recommend all 3 of them, so I hope that you consider giving them a try. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe before you leave, and if you like this video, please hit the like button, give it a thumbs up. That helps me out so much. I would really appreciate it. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.